I'm not calling that to order.
Well, that's what budget is. It's corporate.
Okay, I guess lately I've just been calling the budget.
You can say budget, it doesn't matter, but it is technically.
Okay. Okay, welcome to tonight's budget meeting. I'll call the Corporate and Residential Services Committee to order. Be looking for any amendments to the agenda? Seeing no amendments, the agenda is approved. Next, I'll be looking for any. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki and the district of Sipekne'katik, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. East Hants further acknowledges the 50 African Nova Scotian communities whose 400-year history have contributed to the province's culture, history, and legacies. We are all treaty people. Next, I would be looking for any amendments to the budget meeting minutes of February 12th, 2026. Seeing no amendments, the budget minutes are approved. Okay, the first item on our agenda this evening is before we get to that, we have regrets from Councillor McPhee and also Councillor Hebb. And I would remind all councillors to please sign in if you haven't done so already. And the first item is fire departments exempt municipal properties with Wade Tatry. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this report tonight is about municipally owned properties exempt from property tax and fire levies. Oh, what is going on? What's that?
To duplicate it instead of extend it. Tom's in the back.
What's that?
Tom's in the hall. Just right click on that. Here's Tom's. Right click. His desktop. Tom, can you get that the way?
Go ahead, Tom. Show us the eight. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Tom. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this report is about municipally owned properties exempt from property tax and fire levies. And it's coming about from a motion that was passed in September of 2025, C-25294. And that indicated that moved that council direct staff to prepare a report on possible funding to those fire departments answering calls to municipal properties. So, some background information on this. The Nova Scotia Assessment Act includes various exemptions from property taxation, including fire department levies. And as you can see up here, there's quite a list of properties that are exempt according to the Provincial Assessment Act. And you see item number 8 is municipal properties. And due to this fact, fire departments have not received fire levies for municipal properties or other properties exempted by legislation. Now, we've gone ahead and we've identified all of the various municipal properties, and there's 151 of them, valued at assessed at $66.7 million. And if you go ahead and then take those properties and you calculate what fire levies would be calculated from that, otherwise, ignoring the fact that they're exempt by the Assessment Act, it ends up a total of $106.6 thousand in fire levies that would be distributed to the various fire departments. And you can see here that there's a wide array of amounts. The biggest amounts going to Elmsdale for $55,000, Lance $25,000, Enfield $10,000. The next next one is Shubenacadie at $7,000. The rest are all relatively smaller amounts that would be distributed based on those factors. So if council were to implement this levy, of course, the cost would have to be paid by the municipality itself somehow, including, allocate those amounts to the various cost centers that they relate to, like the waste management center, the waste management fee, sportsplex, water utility, general tax rate, et cetera. And you'd have to find ways of funding that $106,000. It's not in any of the draft budget documents we have so far. And, of course, the options are, reducing other expenditures, raising other taxes, or using reserves would be the way to do. Now, looking at the bigger picture, though, the $66.7 million is really only one part of the total properties that are exempted from property taxation. Because, there's that whole list that we have here, the 13 different areas that's mentioned in the Assessment Act. And when you look at those other properties, the big picture is that there's $349.8 million of other assessment that is not raising fire levies as well. But in addition to that, the municipality has its own bylaw, F400, that it exempts property taxation for a variety of reasons. And you can see here, they're listed under those five items that are listed on the report. Just as an aside, of course, this is separate and above issue, but there are quite a few items within the budget that the municipality is providing funding to the to the fire departments, like WCP premiums, risk consulting, training, et cetera. Madam Chair, the report itself is recommending at this point that this is not something to proceed with at this time and remain a status quo issue at this point in time. But that's the extent of my report, Madam Chair, and if there's some questions, I can try and answer them. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. First to speak is Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just some comments. I'm looking at the Elmstone total, which is very significant, and they could probably use that money moving forward. And of the bylaw F400, the exemption for those five, that when the call is required for emergency services, none of the fire departments do always respond. So I'd like everybody to keep that in mind, even though you don't contribute per se. When the call is there, the Elmsdale Fire Department and all the other fire departments do respond without hesitation.
Thank you, Councillor. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Well, similar to Councillor Mitchell, and I'm speaking only, it just seems to me that we as the municipality not paying the fire levy to our volunteer fire departments to protect our property seems wrong. I'm not suggesting we should charge the not-for-profits or anything like that. And part of that reason is that our fire departments, generally speaking, are very supportive of other fundraising groups and other charities and so forth in the municipality. But as a level of government operating like a business, I do feel that the fire departments are, they're deserving of being paid for protecting our properties, for lack of better. And I know this was raised not formally a number of times when former Councillor Green was on council, because they have, a few properties in their area. And the types of calls that they would have there, with water calls and tourism, lots of tourists there on our property there, it does certainly increase what they need to do. So those are my comments. Like I said, it was not an intention to start charging everybody on bylaw 400, the property tax. It was simply an inner looking search for us to say, should we not pay our fair share to the volunteer fire departments who are protecting our properties as a municipality? Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Seeing no one left, oh, Counselor Tingley. Oh. Do you want to hit that again, please, Counselor? Go ahead.
Just to the chair, do you need a motion for this, or does it just stay status quo? Okay. That's the only question. I have.
Status quo, you would not need any
Okay.
sort of motion.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no one left to speak, you can continue. Go ahead, Warden.
I move that the municipality pay the equivalent fire levies that would be paid on municipally owned properties to the appropriate fire departments who are charged with protecting them. Need a seconder first.
Motion's been made. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Counselor Tingley?
Through the chair, I can't support this motion because it's not the municipality, well, it is the municipality, but it's the taxpayer that's paying this. And I don't see at this time any point of adding more taxes to the taxpayer. And I think we should wait till this fire services report and everything goes through the system as well. So that's about all the comments I have.
Thank you. Counselor Musa?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very opposed to this. I don't know what the warden was thinking about, but I'm thinking that the two biggest here are the pool and the sportsplex. And for my resident to pay already for the price of the pool and pay for fire services for it is not reasonable. So it should be an area rate. If you want, the people who use those facilities, they should be paying for it, not the people who live like 40 kilometers away. So I totally disagree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Perry?
I cannot support the motion either because the municipal buildings are already paid for by the taxpayer, and they're already paying fire rates currently. And so now we're gonna make them pay tax on a tax on a tax. It just does not make any sense. Because not everybody in every area pays the same tax for fire as it is now. You can just look at that by the funding of each individual department. So you're just gonna pass on more taxes to the taxpayer for a service they're already funding for their areas. So I think that it is not prudent for us, especially in economic times. We hear about it all the time. Economic times, the taxpayer, how much they have to pay, how much things are going up. Well, you know, they already in their taxes pay for these buildings and they already pay for fire service. And I just think taxing them on a tax is just wrong. And I don't think that the little amounts up there, and $55,000 might seem like a lot of money, but in a fire service, it's not when if you're looking to do expansion or anything like that. Plus, we've almost every one of us have seen the FSAN's report of everything that's going down with the oversight. We don't know in the future what's gonna happen, but we do know that we're gonna be responsible for certain things. So I just think at this time, this is not the time to be looking at this. I think if you want to do something like this, then it comes with the changes that have to come over the next 3 years to the fire service. But I just don't see taxing a tax already. Thank you.
Thank you. Wade, did you want to weigh in on this, or you're
Oh,
just,
sorry, no.
okay, so Counselor Merriam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we're all very appreciative of the work that our firefighting community does. I guess when I'm looking at this from kind of a quick analysis, as a starting point, the staff recommendation is status quo. The fire departments, of course, are getting fire levies, which is taxpayer funded. So, that is something in place now. We recently, many of us went through a consultative process with the fire departments that we work with. And I work with two, one in Milford and one in Lance. And it was a consultative process. That process did result in a levy increase in both areas proposed for the draft budget. And my understanding is that is through that process, it satisfied their funding requests, by satisfying the ask. And what I didn't hear was asking for more. So I'm inclined to not be in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Mitchell?
Just, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up, the Elmstone total 55,786 would cover their mortgage for the year on their new building, the extension.
Thank you. Warden Rolston?
Thank you. I guess for me, it is just simply a matter of fairness. They are going to be here to this building, to a building in my district or anyone else's district, if they're called to do so. And I know that the taxpayers already pay a fire levy on their own particular properties. But I just struggle to see it any differently. And if council prefers the status quo, then I'll certainly live with this. But I did think it needed to be raised and discussed. And I know that however small the amount, I know our volunteer fire departments could certainly make use of the funds. And so there are some buildings which require specialized equipment and specialized response that they might not otherwise have to respond. And I just, I think it matters. I'll support the motion, and everyone else will have to follow their own conscience, and we'll move on. Thank you.
Counselor Perry? Counselor Musa?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry, Counselor Musa, I've, just one second here. It's actually Counselor Perry's turn to speak, and then if you want to press the button, you will be next. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Madam Chair. Our residents don't pay a per dwelling cost for fire service. They pay for fire service, period, because it's not all paid equally. It's based on your assessment of your home. But you're not paying to protect your home. You're paying for a fire service in a community and in an area. And I believe that if you wanted to say everybody pays for fire service to protect their home, then it would be an equal payment for everybody, not a payment that can be 5 to 10 times more for some people than others. So people have already paid for fire service in their community, and part of their communities are the buildings they've already paid for in their taxes, and that's what I'll say. Thank you.
Okay, now Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to repeat what I said. The Sportsplex is with us because it moved from, it's not paid by the general tax rate, like it's paid by an area rate. And that area rate should pay that fire levy if that pass. And same with the pool. The pool is paid by area rate, not by general tax rate.
Everybody pays the pool.
What?
Everybody pays the pool.
We pay 33%. 66% is,
It's not by an area rate, it's by an allocation rate.
Okay, but some people allocation for the corridor area, not for the Mount Uniacke area. So why should I pay the fire rate on something that somebody else own it? Like, we don't own it, like the municipality own it just because some people paying for it here, not Mount Uniacke people. So I can't agree with anybody here because the sportplex just was passed to us and it's paid for by area rate. And at the end, that area rate is gonna own it. The municipality own it, but I cannot come from Mount Uniacke and tell them, I want my share in the sportsplex any day, anytime. So I don't agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of points of clarification. So the pool debt charges are paid primarily through an allocation of the gas tax from the corridor area. So that is true, but the general tax rate pays for the operations of the East Hants Aquatic Center. So the taxes would be part of that operating expense on our income statement. Just for a nuance, the municipality is not, I don't know if permitted's the right word, but we're not allowed to pay taxes. We don't pay taxes. So similar to other expenses, we would have to record these as grants to each of those fire departments. So they would be considered grants in lieu of taxes. I know it's a nuance, but the motion says that we should pay the taxes on municipal properties, but it would actually be a grant.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Rhino?
To be honest, thank you, Madam Chair, to be honest, I don't even know why we're discussing this. I look at it from, if we didn't have the sportsplex, if we didn't have this municipal office, and we didn't have all this stuff, then the fire departments wouldn't have anything to converse about. But if we didn't have those entities here, we'd have nothing in East Hants. We'd have nothing. There'd be nothing to bring people in. So you can't, to me, it may not be the right way to put it, but you can't have your cake and eat it too in this, right? The communities, we have things in our communities that are bringing people in, are providing spaces for services, are tourist attractions or whatever. So that benefit, it runs through the community in that fashion. I really struggle why this is even here, I honestly do. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Seeing no one left to speak, we have a motion on the floor. We'll go to the vote. And we've got 9, I guess. The motion has failed with a vote of 7-2 with Counselor Warden Rolston and Counselor Mitchell voting for. Okay, you can continue on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we move on to the next agenda item, and this has to do with the Housing Accelerator Funds, or HAF, and this is simply providing council members with additional information with regard to the budget and how some HAF funding has been allocated in our budget documents. So, as you recall, the Housing Accelerator Funds are scheduled to provide over a 4-year period $5.885 million to the municipality. We received a good portion of that already, and council has made quite a few motions over the past 2+ years, 24, 25, and 26, in relation to allocation of those HAF funds, either to operating expenditures or capital budgets. And the documents that you have in front of you, whether it's the operating budget or it's a capital budget that you're going to see later tonight, has stayed true to those motions that you've passed previously. However, when we're preparing the document, we went ahead and prepared the document making assumptions that we would use unallocated HAF funds both in the 26-27 operating budget that you haven't passed motions yet, and also some minor adjustments to the draft capital budget as well. So we wanted to bring this here for you to see. There's no motions needed in relation to this because, as I said, the information I'm providing to you here is simply reflecting what's in the two documents you have already. And should you vote on those documents at some point in this process, you'll be voting on what's included in this information for you here today. So as you can see, I have two sections in this document. It's a draft operating budget, and you can see within the planning and development department, there's a variety of allocations that have been made in the documents already, how we can use the HAF funds in the 26-27 operating budget. And if you recall, we had talked about the HAF funds previously and the fact that it is very much a time-limited opportunity to spend these funds. We essentially have 2 years from almost well, not quite, but almost exactly today, in which to spend those funds, and we're not guaranteed the federal government won't take all that money back if we don't have them spent by that date. So there's somewhat of an urgency to spend those monies quickly and where we can. And so that's kind of the rationale for having used, what you can see there, $644,000 in the draft 26-27 budget, so that we can actually say we've used them and therefore they're not going to be taken back by the feds in 2 years' time.
Okay.
And there's various descriptions, as you can see, as to what they've been allocated to. And when the CAO was going through the business plan document, she pretty much explained a lot of these issues that are in the budget areas.
Okay,
That's the
excuse me,
draft-
Wade.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just going to
Yeah.
let a couple of counselors speak. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Counselor Perry.
Just looking at the numbers here, this shows us what's in this draft budget. But we've already spent half funding the last number of years, right? Is this the end of the half funding, the last few amounts, or what would the remaining balances be? Because I do know that we've done, lift station, water main upgrades, pumps
Yeah.
and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So,
So I was gonna kind of end this kind of with addressing your comment, but I'll talk to it now. So, as I said, there's been quite a few motions over the past couple of years in a wide array of capital and non-capital issues or projects. And we're tracking them in the finance department to make sure we know what's been allocated and what's been worked on, what's been finished. And we very soon, within the next couple of months, because we're now very close to our fiscal year end, we want to come back to council at that point in time and show you exactly, these projects are done. These projects are not going to be done on that 2-year deadline, so we have to reallocate those funds. So we're still in the midst of spending all that money. I would say estimate probably not a significant dollar amount has actually been spent yet. So we really have to look at this and say, council's gonna make decisions about what do we have to reallocate and how and when, so.
Okay.
But we're in the midst of, this is not the right time to do it, in my opinion. Originally, I thought it might be, it's not, after we looked at the whole scenario. We wanna get through fiscal year end, the end of March, have a good picture, come back to you and say, this is where we're at. We need to reallocate. What do you want to reallocate it to? So that's kind of the big picture of where we're at. So that is part of the plan.
okay, no, because I know it was a big number and it was stretching over a lot
Yeah.
of projects over a large area.
Yeah.
So I just looking at these numbers, there was a larger pot
Yep.
that's there than that. So if that report is coming, I'm absolutely okay with that.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I just talked about the draft operating budget. You can see there, $644,000 to a variety of things in the planning department. And then we did a minor reallocations in some of the draft capital budget projects, just simply because one of the projects, the East Uniac Playground as an example, we talked to the budget manager on that. He says there's no way we're gonna be able to spend those dollars within that 2-year timeframe to get it. So we have to reallocate those dollars. And he's indicated the Kiln Creek Central Park is where he wanted to do it. But we also looked at the Lakelands Regional Park and the dollars that were left, and, you know, based on that, allocated another $25,000 of the half funds to that. So that's where we stand on the half funds in relation to the 26-27 operating and draft capital budget. And that's really for information purposes, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, question to staff. That flood information verification figure of 50,000, what is the plan around that? How is that going to be used?
John, would you mind commenting on that? The flood information verification, $50,000 on the planning services cost center?
Through you, Madam Chair. So that study would look at our existing floodplain mapping that we base zoning on, versus new information that the province has provided to us, which in some places is different. So we're looking at thinking, it's hard to justify one or the other at this point to know which would be the truth in terms of on the ground. So this study would look at both sets of data and try to give us some guidance, I guess, in terms of where the zoning boundary should be.
So it's from the point of view of zoning and mapping.
Correct.
Okay, that's the only questions I have.
Okay, thank you. You can continue.
Actually, that's it, Madam Chair.
That's
Nothing
it?
else. Yep.
Okay. So the next item is the Housing Accelerator Fund, additional information.
That was just that
Oh,
one. Yeah.
sorry, the snow removal Uniac Business Park with Jesse. Pardon?
All right. Through Madam Chair, this report is to summarize a potential service cost for snow clearing the Mount Uniac Business Park. And so this came up in January at a council request. Staff looked into a snow clearing option of what a hypothetical cost would be in striving to meet the same service level standard as the Elmsdale Business Park. Whereas the two business parks are both municipally developed and overseen business parks. And so at a high level, staff are assuming based on a flat cost of what it costs to do per kilometers of existing contracts, that to do the Mount Uniac Business Park, we're looking at potential range of, it would cost an additional $5,000 to do the Mount Uniac Business Park to the same level standard as the Elmsdale Business Park, with an asterisk. The asterisk is we would strive for that, but the subtle difference being the ability to use salt or not salt, because that is a well area. So staff are recommending, hey, let's, based on that nominal cost, to trial it next year. Staff would go out, look for a contractor that would do it, receive pricing. If something significant came up, staff would come back and review it, but the intent would be to trial it and see if that cost did prevail where it's not a significant cost upper. Recommending that where there's no notable changes in forecasted costs, and there's unknowns in the market price differences for Mount Uniac, that staff would recommend the municipality takes on the winter maintenance of the Mount Uniacke Business Park going forward and establish a priority one service standard for a area that can't be salted, essentially, with the recommended motion.
Thank you. Counselor Musa.
Great news, Jesse. That's the best news of the day. I think by leaving those businesses for sometimes 24 hour, it could cost every big business over there more than $10,000, but for that day, for shutting down or for customer not going there. I think as a municipality and as a leader, and if we want to keep with the business park, I think that's $5,000 or even $10,000 a small take to keep that business park open. So I'm gonna move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that council direct staff to provide the Mount Uniacke Business Park winter road maintenance at a priority one service level as established in the East Hants policy for winter clearing standard for roads and sidewalks, aligning it to the same priority level as the Elmsdale Business Park for fiscal year 26-27, and to set the same service level of winter road maintenance for all municipally developed business parks going forward, with adjustments to be made for no salt use area as required.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Seeing no one to speak, we'll go to the Counselor Merriam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question on this. I think the pricing is contingent, Jesse, on service exchange assumptions with some, there was some description in there about, we'll trade this for that. And, could you expand a little bit on, I think it's on page 5 of 6, was it not? Just saying like we hope to maybe, give this up and take this and trade this for that, and I kind of got lost a little bit. So is the pricing contingent on some assumptions on that?
Through Madam Chair, it's good timing in the road exchange where the municipality is targeted to receive several new roads, kilometer wise, in the coming fiscal. So those being Moonlight and a portion of Old Mines Road, the next phase of Kill Creek. Well, that not specifically. Garden Meadows, the next phase is 0.8 kilometers. The Moonlight and Old Mines kilometers, and potentially even West Park.
Mhm.
And if that one, it shifts. Those are roads that would go into the shift instead of adding additional roads in the exchange in, say, the corridor area. We would move those allocations in the trade to the province over. And so there might be some trading back and forth and some subtle choices, but that's dependent on which total road count is taken over. And so I highlighted that the Mount Uniacke Business Park is 2.467 kilometers of roads. And then there's the allocation of what we are projecting to take on. And then is there any trades in play as well?
Okay.
So that's getting into the nuts and bolts of operational trading that happens with the province annually, but projecting it's a opportunistic year where we're not anticipating a major shift change because of taking on the Mount Uniacke Business Park. We just wouldn't change which roads we would take on and add in the corridor this go around, more so.
And I think you had mentioned too, some of the wild cards might be just the number of contractors in the area, the quality, just maybe there might be some pricing differences, but it's a pretty good, I think you're saying estimate based on the things that we know.
So the report is 6 or 7 pages long to give the details of all the risks. And there's a lot of unknowns. This report was pulled together quickly to give a perspective. The cost was based on an idealistic, if we got what we got here, we'd get it over here, that's the price. and staff flagged the risks, we'll go to market and you just don't know. And so we didn't want to put in a buffer, but at the same time, snow clearing is a wild card too. We're having a very busy winter this winter. It's very costly. Next winter could be very light and not be noticeable. So it's really hard to gauge until we go to market and experience a winter to know. But it doesn't look significant because of the road exchange. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll go to the vote. And the vote has passed unanimously. Next item is the 26-27 to 2030-2031 capital budget with Jordan and Wade.
Through the chair, today I will be going over the new projects in the capital budget, as well as any existing projects that have been adjusted. I won't present every project from the document today, but staff will answer any questions that councilors may have. So this is a 5-year capital budget. This budget serves as the capital investment plan for the Canada Community Building Fund, which is also known as CCBF. And part of the requirement for CCBF funding is also that you do asset management to ensure that you have a good handle on when your assets need to be replaced. The whole purpose of providing CCBF funding to municipalities is to build sustainability and build capacity, which these have historically been the key areas that municipalities have tended to struggle with. So projects proposed for 2026, 2027 to 2030, 2031 may include projects approved in prior years that are expected to continue beyond March 31st, 2026. Projects approved for further study in prior years that have not yet been actioned, but are still proposed for study on a go-forward basis. New projects proposed to council for approval to commence in any of the years 2026, 2027 through to 2028, 2029. And new projects proposed to council for approval for further study to commence in any of the years 26, 27 through to 2030, 2031. And note that any new projects for approval for further study must come back to council for approval to commence should the project need to proceed. So sources of funding in the capital budget include operations, reserves, external agencies, which could be CCBF, Housing Accelerator Funding, Municipal Capital Growth Program, etc., and debenture. We try to use reserves and/or funding for our capital projects. The default source of funding is borrowing or debenture, and if we need to borrow, then we need to come back to council. Staff cannot change any projects to the debenture source of funding without council approval, nor can staff increase debenture amounts. So here are reserves as of March 31st, 2025. We had a total of 52 million in reserves. Capital reserves made up 9.2 million of that. So capital reserves can be used for capital projects only. Water utility was 3.3 million. These would be depreciation reserves only to be used for water capital projects. We had operating reserves at 36 million, which can be used for operating or capital purposes. And obligatory reserves at 3.2 million. These would be your sewer and water infrastructure reserves as well as open space. Now, in the draft operating budget, we noted that a number of reserve transfers have been increased in order to plan for future capital expenditures. So in addition to normal reserve transfers in this budget, Reserve G016, which is the buildings reserve, and Reserve G307, which is Traffic Infrastructure Reserve. They've both had an additional 193,500 added onto the general tax rate side of reserves. And for the urban service rate side, there was an additional 70,000 that has been added to Reserve U003, which is the wastewater lift station pumps and force mains reserve. So the full list of reserve transfers is found in the operating budget and starting on page 36. So here is an example of a capital project template. New projects start with a 26 project number. And this particular project here, it falls under the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department. It is a one-time project that was presented as part of the business plans, and it's a playground replacement in Belknap. So you can see budget details under the annual gross expenditures, whether a project is previously approved from a prior capital budget or council motion, approval sought, or approval sought for further study. And then below that, you can see the source of funding details. Each project has information in the bottom section as well. There's a project summary section to provide insight as to what a project may entail. There's project objectives and deliverables. Each project includes a section which East Hants Key Strategy does the project align, which will ensure that a project will align with council's strategic plan. Each project will include a section, is the project mandated by regulatory authorities? And this will provide council with information on the necessity of a specific project. And at the beginning of the capital budget document, there is a capital project summary for each year beginning on page 5. Page 5, 6, and 7 all relate to 2026, 2027 projects. So in this table, we are presenting new projects that are approval sought. The page numbers for each project are listed in the left column of each of these tables. There are 37 new projects this year. Several of the new projects reoccur each year, such as business park development, streetlights, hydrants, and water meters. Looking at the table, project 26001 is for business park development. This one has historically been two separate projects in the capital budget, one for each business park, but it has been merged in this budget. Buybacks have been estimated at $150,000 for Uniac Business Park and $300,000 for Elmsdale Business Park in 26-27. Project 26007, the Belknap Playground, which was just used as an example in the previous slide. This one is seeking $150,000, and the funding would be $100,000 open space and $50,000 from special reserves. Project 26008, Shubenacadie River Park Interpretive Panels, is seeking $40,000 with funding expected to be split between special reserves and external funding. There are 4 Sportsplex projects that were discussed at our last meeting. The lights, the score clock, street screen, and the Keith Miller Arena improvements, which is the penalty box and timekeeper area. And the main takeaway from these new Sportsplex projects is that each has been funded from Sportsplex reserves, except for the lights project, which will be debenture for $500,000. Project 26012 and 26013 are both new projects related to the Aquatic Center. 26012 is to enclose the outdoor staircase leading to the Aquatic Center basement, and 26013 is to make safety alterations to the splash pad. Both of these projects are seeking $50,000 approval sought, and both are to be funded from special reserves. Project 26016, Park Road Cross Culvert Replacement. This one is $25,000 approval sought in 26-27. And there are a number of new projects relating to the Waste Management Center, with the largest of these being Project 26020, which is the road and ditching renewal. This one is seeking $110,000 in 26-27. All 4 of these new Waste Management Center projects are funded from special reserves. For wastewater, project 26021, temperature control for Shubenacadie wastewater treatment plant is looking for $58,000. And there are a number of new lift station projects. 26023 Mill Lift Station is looking to replace its aging panel for $46,500. Project 26024 is the pump upgrade multiple lift station project. And this one is looking for $170,000, and it would be to cover 4 locations. Curly's Lift Station, also known as Lift Station number 7, is seeking $41,600. This would be for new variable frequency drives. And the Burgess Road Lift Station is seeking $150,000 in 27-28 for backup power.
Excuse me, Jordan, we just have a couple counselors that would like to speak, starting with Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a counselor, I'm a little bit confused, so I think about residents looking at this when they see everything special reserve, special reserve, special reserve. They don't know where this reserve's coming from, right? So is there any way we could change that? Because, you know, I'm speaking about what I hear from residents. Anytime you see something about taxes on Facebook, oh, we're paying for everything in Elmsdale. And right now, I don't blame them because they don't know which reserve it's which. So if you say Sportback Reserve, then they'll know they're not paying for it. If you say the Pool Reserve or something else reserve, at least we got to explain to the public which reserve this money is coming from. Because as I see special reserve, I think, as a resident, I see it's a big pot and we're drawing everything from it. I don't know if everybody think the same, but that's how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak, Warden Ralston.
Thank you. Just a quick question on the lazy river at the splash pad. I'm just trying to, in my mind, picture it, and I don't remember there being a lazy river there, but has it been filled? And with water traditionally?
Go ahead, Alana.
Thank you. Through the chair, so the lazy river is an indented sort of, it's probably about 4 inches deep, I think. Throughout the splash pad area, there are times where water does sort of filter through it. But I think the concern moving forward is some lazy rivers that you see are just like maybe a half inch or an inch cut into a concrete, whereas this one is almost a little deeper than that. It's like a channel, so to speak. So there's concern is that perhaps there could be trip hazards or things like that with that. So the idea would be to actually fill it in with concrete, perhaps keeping with the design intent, maybe a colored concrete or something, so you'd still give the illusion of a lazy river, but without the concern or the potential hazard of actually tripping and falling in it.
Okay, so then I didn't miss anything. I was thinking, I don't remember a lazy
not a big-
river going
yeah, it's
around the
not-
splash pad,
Yeah.
so,
You can't take a tube in it. It's not that kind of a lazy river, no.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 26-020, ditching and road renewal at the Waste Management Center. Rebuilding the road at the Waste Management Center, including adding culverts to mitigate road washouts and heavy rain. Where would the roads washouts be there? What part of that would you be talking about there to do that work?
Go ahead.
Through Madam Warden, the main section, it's essentially from the scale house up the hill. That section is prone to washout and erosion continuously, and it's focusing on that area. Like, it's there up the hill to the transfer station. It's the main corridor where public users use the area.
Yeah, I understand that. So you're gonna ditch that also and
It's,
and culvert that water somewhere?
and that is the intent of, that's the focus, is to get the drainage so it's sloped and it's pushing away off the sides of that travel surface versus coming down the hill towards the scale house, There's a monitoring well there. It creates some issues for the scales itself, and it's a constant challenge to repair. So making adjustments in that.
Makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Merriam?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to staff. Just wanted to ask about the item for Sportsplex light replacement at $500,000. And I'm just curious with debenture funding, my understanding is, typically 10 years is a common initial term. Is that correct? I'm just wondering about how, is it going to be 110 or, a 10 and a 10? For 20 years, can you talk about how long the payback is on that, please?
Through the chair, typically for anything that we would borrow for, we reach out to our counterparts at the province, and we usually get guidance from them on what time frame they might recommend. Typically, it's 20 to 25 years total. Sometimes it might be 15 years and then a balloon payment that you might refinance afterwards for another 5. Or some variation of that.
I'm just curious about, it is, it's not an insignificant amount of money, and where we're funding it. I'm just thinking out loud about, the longevity of the lights and, maybe warranty on the lights and, the payback period. I guess it's kind of nice when you pay back something over its useful life. So if you had a 20-year payback or 25 and it was kind of set to be replaced in 10 years. Is that, getting into too much detail or can we get a little guidance on that?
Council, I'm just going to let CAO weigh in on this.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you're right, typically if you're just doing lights, you would try and get it over a smaller period of time because you're supposed to match the life of the asset. In this case, we'll be doing the roof replacement at the same time. So generally, you're probably going to do one debenture. This is just a very small part of it. And then the roof would be, it's in the budget for borrowing of 1.4 million. So you would add to that. And we would hope to get some rebates for those lights as well. So we don't know what the final cost will come in after we get our rebates and whatnot in. So it would likely get packaged into that one debenture with the roof, which would put it over a longer period.
Yes.
We wouldn't generally go to do a debenture for something less than 500. Like we would try and use reserves for that, but where the roof's going anyway.
Great, thank you.
Okay, seeing no one left to speak, you can continue.
Okay, so new projects for further study. Note that further study projects are often listed with debenture as the source of funding, but this may change to a different source when we are ready to bring them back to council with an approval sought status. So project 26006, the Burnt Coat Lighthouse relocation, has an approval sought component for 2627 for 250,000, of which the funding is special reserves for 180,000. And CCBF for 70,000. It should be noted that there are 40,000 CCBF savings from the Walton Slipway project. That's project 25006. And we're basically applying those savings in part to this project to have a partial offset, which basically means if you have your 70,000 CCBF usage here, we have 40,000 CCBF savings in another, the net CCBF addition is $30,000 between the two. Sticking with this Burnt Coat Lighthouse relocation project, there's also a further study component for $400,000, and this part would be dependent on receiving external funding. If the funding were to be received, then this would turn into a larger project, and it would come back to council for approval before it were to go ahead. Project 26014, Emergency Notification System for the Lloydie Matheson Center. This one is $100,000 for further study in 2627. 26032, the LED information sign for the East Hants Aquatic Center is $75,000 for further study in 2829. Project 26028 is for the design and replacement of cross culverts on municipal roads. This is 175,000 further study in, oops, in 27, 28. Project 26033 is a sidewalk replacement and active transportation trail on Highway 214. And it's further study in 2829 for 250,000. Project 26035 is a crosswalk at the Milford Rec Association site. And this one is further study in 2930 for $120,000. Project 26029, this one is a utility trailer for the Waste Management Center, and it is further study for 90,000 in 2728. In wastewater, we have project 26030, which is to construct an access road relating to Milford wastewater system. And this project is $1 million for further study in 2728. We also have 2 wastewater truck replacements for further study at 80,000 each. One of these is in 2930 and the other one in 2030, 2031. Project 26026, this one is the regular replacement of water meters, which is seeking $55,000 approval sought in 2627, and then 55,000 further study in each of the next 4 years. And similarly, we have project 26027 for hydrants, which is seeking 60,000 approval sought in 2627, and then 60,000 further study in each of the 4 years after that. Finally, we have project 26034, which is the engineered spring backup power. This one is further study for 200,000 in 2028, 2029.
Okay, just, I'll let Councillor Rhino speak here. Go ahead, Councillor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Just ask back to staff, when you're talking about 26029 utility tractor for Waste Management Center, what would be the justification for looking at something like that? We already have 2 loaders out there, we have 2 excavators, we've got a lot of equipment out there in my time on council that we never had before, and I'm just wondering what would be the thinking and the justification around a utility tractor?
Jesse, would you be able to answer that one?
Go ahead, Jesse.
Through Madam Chair, so this is for further study 2728. The utility tractor is to have a smaller sized heavy piece of equipment to have more versatility in how work gets done with respect to site clearing for snow clearing, salting, sanding, getting into some different spaces that the larger equipment on the site has a struggle to get to, or the larger equipment does damage to, and that is what the request is for that added versatility with equipment.
Interesting, I'm just not sold on it, but interesting.
Thank you, Councillor. Wade?
I'll just add to some comments Jesse had said there. I'm turning to the actual project sheet and reading the project summary on that 26029. It says utility tractor would provide versatility that our larger heavy equipment cannot. These machines use less fuel, are cheaper to maintain, and are more nimble to operate. Currently, snow clearing, salting and sanding, and more is done with the loaders, and while they do a fair job, this equipment would improve the quality of that work. Additionally, loading of the various stewardship program materials would be better served with improved visibility for those tight maneuvers versus the loaders. Hope that helps a little bit.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this slide details any change in dollar amount for existing projects. So project 21001, the Lloyd E. Matheson Center office space reconfiguration. It's looking for 40,000 approval sought, and this is based on CAO and director needs for the respective departments. And this would bring the total project cost up to $130,000. Project 23020 is a truck replacement for the Parks, Rec, and Culture Department. And this one is moving from further study to approval sought for $60,000. Project 24014, Lakelands Regional Park. This project was further study for $600,000 in the prior year, but is now being moved to approval sought for $725,000, with the increase being due to current market conditions. The total project is now $750,000, as $25,000 was previously approved. And funding for the approval sought amount of the $725,000 for this project will be $185,000 from UNIAC Open Space, $515,000 from Special Reserves, and $25,000 from Housing Accelerator funding.
Just have a couple of counselors who would like to ask a few questions. Counselor, Deputy Warden Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 23020, $60,000 for a truck. Where are you gonna find a truck for $60,000?
Answer that. Yeah.
Okay, try, please.
The smaller truck cost that we got.
Thank you, through the chair. Great question. I think that's the amount we had for perhaps a purchase where we actually went with a slightly smaller truck with one of the previous purchases we had, so it wasn't necessarily full-size, 3/4 ton or something like that. We actually went with a smaller, I don't know if it was a Colorado or something like that, for one of the other Parks trucks, and it functions quite well for what we need it for, so I'm
You're
thinking
good.
that's where that number comes from.
Good luck, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in the follow-up of the truck replacements, wastewater system has trucks listed at 80,000 each, and the other one was 60, so I was just trying to see what the difference was in the truck.
Yeah.
But I guess the Park and Rec truck's gonna be smaller than the other ones.
Yeah, so through the chair.
To carry heavy equipment or equipment.
Yeah, so through the chair, it's actually, for what I believe the wastewater group would need, it would be something that would actually have to accommodate heavier loads, and then the upfit or whatever they would need to actually use for the work that they do. I think you're just looking at two very different uses for the different vehicles.
So that would be a full-size half-ton or, okay. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to. 20,000.
Thank you. Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. About the Lakeland Regional Park. So when you say special reserve, what do you mean by that?
I think so, yeah. Through the chair, the special reserves for the Lakeland Regional Park, that one, for a second here. We had 515,000 from special reserves. 340,000 of that was UNIAC Recreation, and 175,000 is the Parks Reserve.
Okay.
That's the current allocation.
Okay, so I was talking to Elena about that, and part of me, for something like that, you need a major contributor like the province or the federal to jump in. And unfortunately, with the division of Mount Uniacke in this area, the MLA only represent 100 or 150 people, so they're not gonna put a big pot in there. So I don't know. It's not in me to agree on that. So I'll leave it to my fellow councilor to add to it probably. But
I'm just going to let Alana speak to that.
So through the chair, I would like to add too that we have that 340 listed there as coming from the UNIAC specific reserve. But with any of our projects, we always try to look at any external funding, whether it's federal or provincial. And what we would do there is, should we apply for, like similarly to like we did for Kiln Creek, we received, I believe, 150,000 for that, for a regional park, with all of the amenities and the accessibility components. We would actually apply whatever we received to external funding and take away from that UNIAC reserve. So the intent would be to reduce that 340, as much as possible.
I totally understand that. But the way I'm thinking, when you have an MLA that represent 150 people in your area and represent 20,000 people in the other area, they're gonna spend most of their pot over there. So that's my fear. So if we leave it there, do we have to go for it? Or if we didn't get the fund that we expecting, can we change that?
I mean, through the chair, this is a phased approach for this particular build out. And I mean, the initial phase would be not the bulk of those funds. So I mean, certainly we could look at what that looks like and what the funding pots could be. I think to date we've been fairly successful in receiving the grant funding because, we really do look at the sources that suit the project. So whether it's grants for seniors or accessibility or things like that, we do try to tailor the grants to the project. So I can't see in a crystal ball or anything like that and say for sure that we would get that, but I think we have a fairly good track record of receiving funding for most of our projects.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Talking to the same project, it looks like this year there's plans to spend $266,000. What really is looking to be done this year, because we haven't had an official release of any sketches or looked at the amenities or had any community meetings about what the community would like to see in a regional park as well.
So through the chair, through the Mount Rec strategy that we did a number of years, we would have had a good indication of the different things that individuals were looking for. Like I said, it's a phased approach over a course of, say, 3 years. And I would say the initial phases will be getting access into the site, parking lot. The concept plan does propose a fairly large green space, so we would be looking at grading that and establishing that for just that, passive green space, things like that. And in future, that really could be used for something like soccer. Additional phases would look at things like playgrounds, other amenities. I know the community has expressed recently interest in having something like disc golf on the site, which those are things that we can work with within our budget because disc golf specifically, it's rather minimum input financially for what you get out of it. It's fairly easy and straightforward to put in there. But then in the third phase, we would look at things like courts, trails, and other things like that. So that's sort of the idea behind it. We have it broken down into those 3 amounts per year. There's wiggle room there. We probably won't spend that entire 200 and some thousand in the first year if we're just doing access and things into the site, but probably year 2 is when you'd see the bulk of the assets start to go in.
Okay, because I do know there's been lots of talk about this.
Yep.
And the community wants to speak about what goes in there. The study was done a couple of years ago. The community has grown quite a bit since then. You look at the number of houses, over 100 this year gone in, plus the previous year. So there's been a little change in some of the demographics as well. So as long as there still is room for consultation before those other pieces go in, that would be great, because the community still hasn't seen the concept plan or anything like that yet. So I would imagine, in looking at the funding, the $75,000 up front would not be out of the UNIAC fund. That would be out of the Parks Fund and the 340.
The Parks and Tourism Reserve.
Parks
Yep.
and Tourism Fund, yeah. Okay, All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when we get an open space land, is it for that area of the municipality or for the whole Mount Uniacke? Like,
Sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that, Counselor.
if you get an open space from a subdivision, so is that belong to, like, for the use of the people in the subdivision or for the whole?
So through the chair, we actually have our reserves for open space grouped into, I believe, 3 main areas. So there would be, I see Jordan nodding, so I feel like I'm good there. We would have the Mount Uniacke base, then we have a corridor as well. So open space funds in Mount Uniacke would be in that Mount Uniacke.
No, I meant the land, the open,
Oh, sorry.
the open space land.
Oh, regional park? It would be more than just,
Not a regional park. If you do a subdivision and you get an open space.
it is
area.
open access. Yes, it
Open
is not,
access.
it is not intended just for the individuals in that neighborhood.
But don't you have don't you need those people to accept it? Because I've heard a lot of opposition for that from the people that live around that. Some of them, they're talking about apple orchard there. I don't know if there's any apple trees down there or something, but I think all the Pinewood area, they're behind that subdivision, that land, they don't want nothing there. They want to be like that. They're using it as it is now. So I don't know how we're gonna approach that. As Councilor Perry, we need a lot of consultation because I don't want to put something where people next to it, they don't want it there. Like, I know we have 250-acre parcel and it's very central, and I still believe that regional park should be in the middle of the town, not at the extreme, close to.
So through the chair, I know you're speaking of the Rockwell Drive area, which
Rockwell Drive
we
area.
do have. With future development, we can confirm that we will be getting, I think, either a 2 to 2.5 acre parcel on that site. I can't speak entirely to whether or not that area has wetland, but we do have a lot of area identified there as potential for that. So it certainly makes some of your regional park planning a little trickier, maybe less asset oriented and more passive with, say, trails and things like that. But we do have a parcel coming with that Rockwell Drive area as that build out happens. It's just not, say, a 14 acre or a 20 acre parcel.
We already have one already for 250 acre there. So I think Adam knows it better, or.
I'm just going to let the CAO weigh in on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess there's a lot going on in Mount Uniacke with this conversation. Typically, and I'm not saying we won't, but typically we wouldn't do public consultation on a specific park and what amenities need to go into a park. We get the parks designed based on our own studies that we've done. If you want us to do consultation, we can, but we need to sort of flesh that out a little bit and what that looks like. So maybe we should set a meeting offline with the Uniacke councilors just to figure out all of the sort of how we get to where we need to be conversations. And then whatever direction comes from that, we can come back to council with a sort of your vision of what this looks like from a capital project. And we won't start any of the work until that conversation happens. And we can probably have it fairly soon, I believe. We do have some drawings and some plans, but they should go through you two at a minimum for consultation. And then if you want us to go out to further public consultation, we can do that. I just don't know that we know enough tonight to sort of come to the conclusion of it.
Like, okay, I understand that, thank you, but I'm not an expert in regional parks, right? But when you have two districts contributing to that project, and you have the majority of the taxpayer live 30 or 35 minutes away from that project, and they're closer to Finley Park, I don't see the benefit for those people. So I think regional parks should be more central in the community that's gonna use it. So I don't know, that's me, but probably I'm wrong. Probably staff have better idea, but I'll leave it with that, thank you.
And through you, Madam Chair, there is a significant amount of money coming from our general tax rate parks reserve for this park, so it's not insignificant, and I think Alana alluded that would be spent first on a lot of the planning and whatnot. So I think the concept of a regional park is that they would draw from a very large catchment area. So it would be a lot of Mount Uniacke folks using it as their local park, but you're also, if it's done right, going to draw from that much larger catchment area that includes, many, many kilometers away. And not only in East Hants, like there would be people from Halifax using that as well, I would assume.
Thank you. Counselor Perry?
Yeah, just to kind of go on with what the CAO was saying, I know currently the Memorial Park that's next to the Manor and just right adjacent to the Uniac House is used a lot by people from Sackville, from Windsor, and from all over. I think that, the biggest thing for me was every time when we did the park development in East Uniac, we did the park development in South Uniac, we were shown a lot of things and we were asked and we were consulted in the design phase, and we haven't really got anything yet. And it's a large contribution, a large money, and moving forward and digging stuff. Because some of the amenities that have been put in the community are well used and other ones are never used. So that's the type of thing I think would be really good to have a talk with staff about, to ensure that what gets put in there is actually used by the public. So I think the offline meeting would be the great idea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Jordan?
Thank you. So project 25015, which is security for the Sportsplex. This one was discussed last week and is seeking 171,000 approval sought, where 250,000 was approved in the last capital budget, and this would make the total for this project $421,000. Project 14016, which is the scale replacement at the Waste Management Center, and it was discussed during the business plan presentation. And this one is seeking $130,000 approval sought, where it was $105,000 further study in the prior year budget. Project 25017, the C&D landfill cell, is seeking an additional $635,000. This would increase the project to 2.06 million, and this one would be debenture funding. We have two existing water utility projects that are seeking additional funds due to current market conditions. We have Project 24031, which is the Shubenacadie Water Tower Renewal. This one's looking for $100,000, and this would bring the total for the project to $275,000. And then we have Project 25028, which is the water tower mixers for Elmsdale and Shubenacadie. And this one is looking for an additional $20,000 to bring the total for the project to $60,000. So this table details increases to further study amounts when you compare the 25-26 capital budget to the current 26-27 capital budget. And we have Project 25025, which is the Sportsplex floor replacement. It was $300,000 in the 25-26 capital budget. And this has been increased by $200,000 and it is now $500,000 for further study, scheduled in 27-28. And then we have Project 18010, the Milford Lions Club sidewalks. It was $165,000 in the 25-26 capital budget. Council Motion C-25-251 has increased this by $60,000, and it is now $225,000 for further study, and it is scheduled in 29-30. And that concludes the capital budget presentation. We would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Counselor Tingley?
Through the chair to staff, this may, I don't know if this is a dumb question or not, but thank God for reserves. Is there a plan, do we have a plan that we know where we think the reserves are gonna be at the end of next year and so on? Like, do we have a plan for reserves as well as?
Yeah, so through the chair, we have mapped out our reserves to the end of next year and what the balances might look like. That was part of the presentation earlier, was discussing some of those increases that we're putting money away to reserves in this budget to assist with that, because we know there is a lot coming down the pipeline in this capital budget. I would say within the next few months, I'm guessing we're going to be looking further at our reserves, probably a separate report to council, I would say, on the reserves in general. And that's a good time to
Okay.
have that conversation, I think.
Okay, that's good, thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a curiosity question. When projects are going to be covered, funded by debenture, are we healthy?
Through the chair, yes, we currently have a pretty healthy debt ratio. It's one of the financial condition indicators that the province looks at. And we are healthy compared to, I'd say, many municipal units around the province.
So none of these projects would put us in a serious position otherwise?
No.
Okay. Thank you. I feel good.
If I can just add to that, Jordan was just referring to a report that's going to be coming up in the next few months, and that is going to be focusing on what does a municipality look like from a debt scenario, forecasting out, probably into the next 10 years, and what that will mean for reserves and debt, and at the same time, arriving at a debt management policy with that and some debt management tools that the municipality can use going into the future. So we will be looking at that more in depth in the coming months.
So this motion here is for councilors' consideration if committee is prepared to make the recommendation. It's a short motion.
Warden Ralston.
Thank you. And I did previously try and match some of these things up, and I did the same tonight as I read the actual descriptions that match them. So anyway, I move to recommend to council that the 5-year capital budget for the fiscal years 2026-27 to 2030-31 as presented be approved and adopted effective April the 1st, 2026. Administration is given approval to proceed with the previously approved capital projects and those in the approval sought sections, subject to any conditions limiting such projects in previous motions of council or in policies of council. Should time permit, staff are authorized to embark on projects in this capital budget that require long-term pre-planning prior to April the 1st, 2026. Projects approved for further study are approved in principle only. Amounts identified as approved for further study cannot be expended prior to presentation of a full report to council for consideration or approval through a future capital budget process. Where time permits, staff are given approval to proceed with approval sought projects from 2027-2028 prior to April the 1st, 2027. And that any projects approved in the 2025-2026 capital budget not reflected as carried forward to the 2026-2027 capital budget, but that are substantially committed at March 31st, 2026 shall be carried forward to 2026-2027 based on the remaining budget at March 31st, 2026. And that this 5-year estimate of capital spending form the Capital Investment Plan, CIP, as required by the federal and provincial government funding agreements, and that the water utility sections of this budget are permitted to stand alone as the East Hants Water Utility capital budget as required by the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board, NSRAB. And that staff be given authority to alter the sources of funding where necessary, but in no case shall the amounts to be debentured increase without prior approval of council. And that council seek ministerial approval for a temporary borrowing resolution, TBR, for any amounts in this capital budget under the debenture debt category of funding. And that pre-approval to borrow amounts in this capital budget under the debenture debt category of funding for a term not to exceed 25 years at a rate not to exceed 6.5%. Sure.
Trust us, all of that is necessary to keep you on the up and up.
That's what we want. So motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Counselor Merriam?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so lots of great information there, obviously. One of the things that comes to mind is as we're looking at things like, financing from debentures and, on the other side of the equation is the operating budget. And there's been various changes with things like fire levy changes and so on. I'm just out of curiosity, I'd be kind of interested to see the interplay between the two. Because I don't think we've quite come back yet and kind of talked about, what I see, I'm causing consternation with Wade, but, when you look at financing different things over a period of time, would that not affect on the operating budget side when you bring it back to paying for that, what those payments look like, how they affect tax rates? Is there no interplay there? What am I missing?
Well, I'll give it a crack. You correct me, Jordan. So I don't think you're going to see any significant variations from what you've seen already, based on what we've talked about in the adjustments that you've approved in the operating budget. And I don't think we've made any adjustments to the capital budget that we presented here. So there'll be will come forward with a list of adjustments you've talked about and some that we've noticed, which are relatively minor when we get to that point. But nothing that's going to have any significant impact on tax rates or anything that you've already seen and we've discussed.
Okay.
Nothing beyond that.
Okay. Just a
What did I say
question.
wrong, Jordan?
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Seeing no one left to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are actually at the end of our topics that we had to present to council, both on the operating budget and the capital budget. Nothing else on our schedule to present to you that we can think of. Our budget schedule at the moment from, going forward, we have next Tuesday scheduled. Tuesday, yes. And the only other item that we have needs to be done at some point is the water utility budget, which is really quite straightforward. Will take very short period. We don't have it ready right now,
Okay.
but it's really a 5 to 15 minute issue, and it's going to be matching up with exactly what we just filed with NSRAB. And so there's no rush to do that. That could be done in March, if so desired. So really looking forward to council to see if you want to talk about anything else, any other issues you want to talk about, or would you, also talk about next Tuesday night? Do you still want to move forward with it with issues? And depending if you don't want to proceed, there is this motion that would kind of wrap things up from a go-forward perspective, and we could bring the final documents to you and the adjustments and everything in next Wednesday night's council meeting. But looking for council's direction, how you want to proceed.
Okay, so first we're going to go to Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff, there's one thing that I am interested in, and that would be the CCBF funding, the amounts, the balances, the debentures, where that funding comes into and goes, and how it's divided up, and where it is going throughout the municipality, because I think that's a very important thing that the federal government's been pushing, and I don't know, quite frankly, what the numbers are, where it's going, how it's divided up, and what's happening. So if I don't know, I think I should find out and the public should, have that as well.
So if I can speak about that just briefly. That's basically something that we have in our backup schedules and of our reserves and everything that we could break out quite quickly for you and show you, here's last year's balances, this is what we're planning to use this year, what's coming in, if anything, and then a projected balance at the end of the year, and give you kind of an overview of what the purpose is. It's really be pretty darn quick. And what do you think, Jordan? That's a pretty, we could email it in the, very quickly and give you a good,
Email and post it, I'm
Yeah.
fine with that, because then
Yeah.
if there's any issues, I can bring it up as business from council or,
Yeah.
or like that. So I don't wanna make it onerous, but it's just something.
that's
that,
not a problem.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Warden Rolston.
I move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that to council approval of a 2026-2027 operating budget as amended by the committee during budget deliberations, with a final table of adjustments and rates to be prepared for council's consideration on February 25th, 2026.
Moved and seconded. On before the motion, Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if I missed it, but have we talked this year about the transfer tax?
The what?
No? That's the only way we could reduce tax, and I don't know. I was kind of looking forward to see what's the surplus in there, to see if we can do something, but if it's only me, it's okay.
No, there is no actual surplus from an actual amount that we have assumed in our budget for deed transfer tax as a revenue item that's coming in. We're using exactly the same number as we used last year, which was 3.3 million, correct? And we've analyzed, there's guidelines in relation to what we bring forward and using the assumption now in our budget document of 80 to 90% of the past 2 years and the estimate of this year. It was the amount used in the actuals last year, previous year, are substantially higher than what we're seeing year to date. And that those guidelines for what we use in assumption is basically 3.3 million, and that's where we're at. And it's used entirely in the document that we've drafted.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With what we've learned over the past month with regard to the fire services, and in a conversation I think the CAO had about projected employment needs due to that fire services report, is that going to, they're talking about rolling something out by September of this year. Is that gonna have a direct effect on the budget of this year, or more so on the budget of next year? And if we have to do any extra hiring due to this fire services report, how much, will that come from reserves or to get us through until we can budget it in the next budget?
I'm just going to let the CAO weigh in on that.
Through you, thank you, Madam Chair. That's a really tough question to, I guess what's going to happen is a tough question to answer. How you will fund it when you do it isn't really a tough question. I think if it's in the middle of a year and you need to do something, or you choose to do something in response to that, then you've certainly got enough contingency reserves to do that for half a year. I, for example, am doing some space planning right now. I'm planning to have a body in there for either a fire service coordinator or a fire chief, because that's what the province is telling us. But when that will happen, I'm not sure.
So you're gonna have a body, out of these many hires that we're gonna do through this budget, one of those could be directed to look after the fire services, any related fire service things for this year?
Not the ones that are in the budget, but if you get to a point that you say as a council, we want to act on this and we're going to go this route. We're going to hire a fire chief to oversee the fire departments, is what the province is recommending, or fire services coordinator. What I'm saying is we will have to do that and pay for it. You've got money in your contingency reserve to pay for that if you choose to do it halfway through a year. We haven't raised the tax rate this year in this budget to hire that person because we're not far enough down that road yet. I think once you see the legislation that comes out in September, you're going to want to have to make some decisions, and maybe even before that, because I think many of you were on the call last night with the province. I mean, this is happening. There's no question this is happening. So whether you want to get out in front of it, whether you want to wait for the legislation, you may want to do something. We don't have any money sitting in this budget waiting for that to happen, knowing that we do have a fairly healthy contingency reserve. So that's not, the money is not going to hold you back from moving forward.
All right, that's a great answer, but for me, myself personally, I do not like these number of hires that's happening here, or we've increased these hires all, in the last 3 years. I haven't even ventured to count, but it's a huge amount we've increased staff. Now, I know that everybody can put a reason to everybody, but I would rather cut back on a couple of them and be ready and hire somebody, because we know it's coming. You know it's gonna have to be a chief or fire coordinator. You know, why don't we get out ahead of this lot earlier? And, because we know we're gonna need it. Instead of waiting until the last minute, you know, if the edict comes down in September, and then we have to go through the hiring process, at that point, we may not have that person for 8 weeks yet. It just seems like to me, I'd rather get ahead of it now, but one of those, instead of a couple of hires that we do have there, let's cancel that, get something we do know we need right there, right? So, and that is my opinion only.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, I'm a little concerned with the staffing as well, but I really don't understand the productivity or the needs as well as the directors and the CAO would. We've got some high percentages in increases in salaries and everything that comes under the salary in the various departments. You know, up in the mid to high teens or into 20-some%. As far as Councillor Rhino's comments about the fire services, I think that's what we do. We just wait till we're forced into something and then we do it. So I think we could have been looking at this a while ago, and we might as well just wait and see what the fire services do come out with. But, you know, this is the same with the coastal protection, the stormwater, the fire services. You know, I sit here and I hear, we'll wait till the province forces it on us. Well, at some point, we're gonna have to do all this stuff. You know, it's gonna come fairly quick now. You know, I'm gonna vote in favor of this budget, but I don't understand the amount of staff that we're increasing, the same as Councillor Rhino. It just seems to be large increases since I've been on council. That's it.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the CAO's approach of wait and see. We have contingency reserves because maybe the first person we don't have to hire is the chief. Maybe we have to hire somebody to start doing administration and pulling things together first, and then the chief comes in afterwards, or the coordinator. We are the third largest municipality in Nova Scotia, ladies and gentlemen. We do not have the third largest staff of municipality in Nova Scotia. There are plenty of municipalities out there with way more staff members than are here. And I believe I would rather have somebody on staff a year early than a year late, because that means they have to play catch up, and that means a service degradation to our residents. The service level will drop if we need somebody and we don't have that body. So I really do think we are growing, and then as much as we grow, and you see that assessment jump up by the hundreds and hundreds of millions every year in our area, that means there's a lot more people here. That means there's a lot more people that need answers. And we can't expect the same number of people to keep doing the same thing when the pocket of people they have to answer to gets so much larger, right? We are not gonna shrink next year. We're gonna continue to grow through all of the districts. You can see there's healthy growth happening. And I believe that we need to make sure that we have a robust staff to be able to handle some of these. I am still worried that there are parts of the municipality that are only one person deep. That if somebody was to, God forbid, have an illness or suffer an accident or something comes up, right? We've been in that situation in the past. We had nobody who could reconcile some of the stuff in the finance department. We had, with checking and doing certain things. So when we look at that, the vulnerability of our municipality due to our staffing levels is something I think next year, when we go to the HR report, we should really look at seriously, because we have more people, they're gonna want more services, and if we're growing, we need to make sure that we grow equivalently, because we can't be a one-person deep staff because of one point of fail. We're not gonna have that. I know staff is cross-training, but somebody shouldn't have 3 primary jobs at a time, or 2 primary jobs, because it's just not feasible or sustainable. And the great staff culture we have now will go downhill fast. And we have some big changes coming up in the next 4 to 5 years, and it's better to have ourselves with a solid foundation than be weak. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Warden Rolston.
Thank you. I would just add to that, the increases in various departments, and we do have salary scales and those things too, and I'd like staff to plug their ears now, please. We have excellent staff here. We have the very best, and we live next door to HRM. We live next door to Colchester and Truro. And in Nova Scotia, we live next door to New Brunswick. And there are municipalities all over the country who are searching for good staff. And we have good staff that, especially senior staff here, they could go almost anywhere and, be much sought after. So if we want to retain our good staff, we have to create an atmosphere of a good working atmosphere, which I think we really try to do. We also have to be competitive with wages and compensation, which I believe that we are and continue to be. We also have to be aware of the workload of staff and provide adequate people to get the work done. Those are all key things, because I know many municipal councilors, wardens, and mayors across this province in particular who are somewhat envious of our staff and our abilities. And the fact that East Hants is as well respected and well thought of out there as we are is due in no small part to the staff that we employ. So I do support the asks in the HR report. It would be nice to say do more with less, but the reality is that's a good sounding saying, but it rarely works out very well. It's very rare that you can actually do more with less. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair. Well, first of all, I'd like to clarify. There's no denying we had good staff, excellent directors, CAO, and we want to compensate them fairly. My only question was around staffing. And we're here talking about we have to be aware of the workload. And I don't think the councillors are aware. How could we be aware of the workload without any data? So I don't know how many building inspections a building inspector should be able to do, or how many building inspectors we should have, or various types of staff. We sit here and we talk in generalities. I'd like to understand the staffing a little bit better. But I certainly, when I make that comment about staff, I have absolutely nothing negative to say about the directors. I appreciate all the directors for what they do, and the CAO. And I think we have excellent staff, and I'd like to be treating them that way in their compensation and in every which way. But myself, as I said in these discussions, I don't feel that I actually understand when we vote to increase the cost in these departments by 15, 19, 23%. I don't really understand that. And I'd like to have a better grasp of it. So I'm not even saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I don't understand. In my whole life, in other things that I've worked in, or my personal life, I can measure things. This I can't measure, and I'd like to have some understanding of it, and just not be talking about it politically. Trying to cut expenses or say anything negative about staff or positive about staff. The staff are fine. But I'd like to have a better understanding of it. I hope I've made my point clear, and I don't know if we can get to that point. But if we could have a better understanding of what the productivity, what the cost, and what the need is there, I'd have a better comfort level.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Rhino.
Well, I agree with Councillor Tingley in the fact that we do have great staff. And yes, they're probably in demand and could go anywhere. I understand that, but that's the business in which we're in. If you're good, you're gonna be sought after. That's just the way it is in all forms. But when I look at, down the road, the population growth, and we got, we're gonna have to add more RCMP at some point, there's big costs there. I look around and you listen to the news and you hear HRM going through a budget process there. We're not nearly as big as them, but they're doing some belt tightening. What the news today from the provincial governments about laying off staff and closing museums and closing this, that to me, I feel that's just the beginning. And I feel the belt tightening is really, really gonna come. So I think that, many people are gonna argue with me and say, well, we're giving you the cheapest option we can, but I do believe that maybe we could have got by with one less staff or two less staff. And I really believe that, because the belt tightening is just gonna start to come and things are gonna get harder. And I just like to be a leader in that. Thank you.
Okay. So, seeing no one left to speak, we've got a motion on the floor. Go ahead, Counselor Rhino.
So with this motion, it will be a 1 cent decrease in the residential and a 1 cent decrease in the commercial. Just so we're clear, because that is, it's not really shown in the budget. I suppose it will be there for next Wednesday night.
Yeah, we'll reflect everything.
You'll reflect everything, but I think it's in. Okay, so there's no other adjustment other than that. It's gonna stay at the 1 cent from what you've heard.
Correct.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the vote. And the vote has passed with a vote of 7-2, with Counselor Musa and Counselor Rhino voting nay.
don't have to come Tuesday night?
Go ahead, Wade.
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about next Tuesday night, so I'm not sure if a motion is needed for this or not, or just a general discussion amongst council members, that there is no more agenda items for next Tuesday night, so.
Okay, so can we just scratch that from the schedule, or?
Someone let Counselor,
We'll do that tomorrow.
Okay,
Counselor Head. But reach out to Carolyn.
Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair. First of all, I think the staff did an excellent job of presenting the budget. But to go back to my point about the staffing, we're gonna get some kind of an HR report. Is it possible that could help, or should I be requesting something else that could help me better understand these increases in staff?
CAO?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the increases in staff in the public budget document are difficult to lay out because it involves sometimes individuals. What we try and do in that document is explain the increases with, on those variance tables, you'll see, increase in wages due to new part-time role, benefits, whatnot. And sometimes it's a change between full-time wages to contract wages because maternity leaves are happening or whatnot. So
I can understand that.
it gets really confusing. I guess depending on, like the HR report outlines what new dollars are in the report, what new positions are in the budget. We could give you a sort of a table of what new positions and what amounts, but I think those are communicated throughout the budget process. I'm not sure how much detail you want, like how granular you want it to get to.
Well, even like the assistant position or the deputy position that you're looking for, a more detailed explanation of the time we just talk in general, it's needed. That's a big spend.
Yeah.
Can we get a better breakdown of what that entails? And maybe everybody here feels they understand it, but I don't understand it.
Okay.
And even when we go for building inspectors, I don't know how many building inspectors we have now, but you have so many building inspections, times how many average they would do in a run of a year type approximately.
Yeah.
How do we determine all this stuff?
Through you, Madam Chair, we've talked about at our strategic planning sessions about different KPIs that we could get without having to hire a whole other person to
Yeah, I don't want
develop
to
our
get into that.
KPIs. So that is a project that we have on our list and we've talked about that before. And I'm hoping actually that's one of the things that the deputy CAO position can help with is a lot of that strategic monitoring and planning, which involves establishing those KPIs and then figuring out how we report on them to council and to the public. So we have a lot of stats,
Right.
but it's compiling them in a absorbable manner that takes the time, which is what we don't do well right now. But John can tell you how many building permits he's done, how many inspections that's resulted in, how much time each inspection, maybe not how much time each one has taken, but the average, they get 3 done a day or 4 done a day, or like we have all that kind of data. We just don't have it compiled in a way that makes sense.
Right.
That's easily distributable to council and to the public. So that is something that we have to work on this year and next.
Because my experience in business is we measured everything.
Right.
And like even being on the PV,
SC.
yeah, like they measure everything.
Yep, and they have 300 staff.
And yeah, and
They have a whole team of analytics people.
so I
right?
don't understand it granularly, but
Yeah.
I have a better understanding of what they're saying when they say they need
Right.
another person to do something.
Yeah,
So-
I don't currently have any business analytics people on my staff. I have people that are good at analytics,
Okay.
but that's not their job. So I don't have anyone who could look to each of these departments and go through all their databases and figure out how to extract all the information that's relevant to making some of these decisions. I just don't have anyone to do that. So,
So I'm never gonna get to this information.
well, my hope is that you'll get something
Right.
that we can extract easily.
Anything.
But I don't have, like, I know some of the people that work for PVSC that do their data analytics. They're amazing.
Right.
I would love to have a team of those folks here. I just don't, because it's, to me, that is, if we were looking for enough staff to do everything that comes up, then I would probably need a data analytics person to justify that. In my mind, we don't have enough staff to do a lot of what comes up. We do really well at what we have. But when we add another position, it's not because we think we need it in a year's time, it's because we needed it a year and a half ago, and we've been struggling without it. Those are the positions that we add to our budget. So we're not, to Councillor Perry's comment, we should be adding them a year before we need them.
Right.
We don't do that. We are serious, for everything that's in the budget, we are seriously struggling already to get the work done that needs to be done. So that's what gets in your budget document,
And I understand.
and
that.
that's hard to
I
quantify,
understand that.
what we're
That's-
not getting done.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that for tonight, but I understand that that's what's being said, but I don't understand how that's
Right.
justified.
Right.
And
I
we're not gonna
understand-
settle it here
I
tonight.
absolutely understand where you're coming from, and I do understand the values of KPIs and to make business decisions. I don't have data analytics people, but I do have data. So one of the things I'm hoping to do is start small with the data that we do have. How do we use that to either benchmark ourselves against other municipalities? A number of staff would be a really easy thing to start with. Like per
Right.
capita, how many staff do we have compared to everybody else?
Right,
That would give you more information than you have now.
right.
I don't have that information right now.
Yeah.
So, but I understand your need for that data to make good business decisions. And I respect it 100%.
Yeah.
I just don't have it to give you.
Okay, and don't take it as that I'm questioning.
I don't at all.
Because like I trust you and the staff, to the end type of thing, but it would be really comforting if I
Yeah, I agree with
understood
you,
that better.
100%.
That's it.
Okay, we have our past our time of adjournment, so Councillor Musa, you go ahead.
It's okay. I like, this budget started very well for me when the CEO said we have some region in the municipality that are growing exponentially and we should find a way to service them and stuff. So I was expecting something, but I didn't see anything in this budget that will help. So I hope in the next budget, we're gonna have something like for the splash pad and probably staff funded by the municipality for that area. And that's the least I could expect, because we have Mount Uniac. I've been there since Mount Uniac was 282 million in assessment, and now it's the most assessment, 832 million. So that's 3 times in 10 years. And I've never seen anything like special for that area. So if we're gonna keep like that, I don't know how we're gonna go. So that's why I voted against it, and I'm very disappointed.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, seeing no one left to speak, I would just like to thank Wade and Jordan and our finance team and everybody who put together a very clear and concise budget. You did a great job, and it helps our job of approving it. So thank you very much.